Welcome to the Montana Ministry Network podcast. This episode features session speaker Rich Greenwald at the 2024 Network Council in Great Falls, Montana. Let's get started.
All right, everybody, we're going to get started, and we'll see if there's any more people that come in. But so obviously we have the elite crowd here. You've got your mental health in order and your finances in order, and you live in a small town, and so this is the place to be. So we have a panel here today, 3 pastors from different places in Montana, and they've got their work cut out for them to top what Greg and Daniel and Lisa did at the breakfast this morning. So they're feeling the pressure, and I don't know if any of them were there. Well, Jared was there. Jared was there, so he knows the bar.
He's the spiritual one that wakes up early.
Those two have no bar to reach, so. Well, I wanted to do this panel this morning because there's a couple of things that I want to accomplish. I have been a missionary to rural America now for about 8 years, and I have to tell you that when I made application to become a U.S. missionary, we had these plans of what that would look like, because you have to submit that to U.S. missions to be approved and say, this is what we're going to do. Can I tell you that 8 years later, nothing that I had on that plan is accurate? Everything looks different than I ever anticipated. Well, I can't say everything, but most things. And but life is exciting when you follow after God's plan for your life and let Him lead the direction of the ministry. And so God has been able to work in our lives and accomplish some things that we didn't even realize were going to be a part of our portfolio in ministry when we began. And it has been an incredible journey. And I've asked these 3 pastors here this morning to share with you some of the things that, as most of you know, my wife and I are missionaries to rural America, and we have an organization called Rural America Ministries, very creative name. And through that organization, we've been able to do some of these things, and we've been able to have an impact on these particular 3 churches that are represented by these pastors up here this morning. And so the first thing that I have asked of them is to share with you some of the experiences of what has happened in their life and in their church through the ministry of Ram and my wife and I, and how that has affected them as pastors, and how it has affected their church. And because I want to give you an idea of some of the resources that are available to you by us being missionaries, and through the organization of RAM that we've been able to be a part of. So I want to give them an opportunity to share some of those experiences, and then we've got a few more questions for them. And then if we're really feeling adventurous after that, we may open up the questioning to you guys, that you can grill these guys that are sitting up here, because they need that once in a while. They need to be challenged a little bit. So we'll start with Jared and move our way down, but share with everybody here some of the experiences that you've had and the resources that have been available to you through RAM, through Kim and I, and how that has affected you.
All right, there's a lot. I'll start with this little story. When I tell people that who Rich Greenwald is, our church says, "Oh, that's the guy that brought all those boxes of stuff and piled it in front of our church." Because they had the Rural Compassion Ministries, and they gave out the boxes of stuff. We still have, 5 years later, we still have the large cups that nobody wants to use because they're so large. That's what people think of, but they've helped us in a lot of different ways. We've gone through part of the Acts 2 journey that he's been a part of. They brought in Rural Compassion. They have provided some resources, discipleship resources. And one of the big ones is he actually got us in touch with a group from Kansas City, Missouri that wanted to do a missions trip to a rural area. And so they brought 28 young people from Kansas City, Missouri to basically help with church projects and help the kids, did kids ministry. They did the elderly and the widows in our church. They did some painting on some houses and all that kind of stuff. And they would have never had that kind of resources to find somebody like that without them. And so those are just some of the things. And of course, Rich and I have a connection because he was the pastor in Circle, Montana for a number of years, and then I followed after him. So it was kind of nice to be able to, down the road, have another connection.
For an oversight, we pastor in Red Lodge, Montana, but for a year they had an interim pastor, which just so happened to be Rich, which was great because Rich was able to come in and not just keep the church together, but kind of unify the church before a new pastor came. I know that through our conversations during that process, it was there was a huge talk of whether to keep the doors open or not, and Rich was able to walk a leadership team, let's call it a loose leadership team, through that process because they had never had to hire a pastor before, and they'd never had to think ahead to whether they knew who they wanted as a pastor. They just wanted a guy the same as the last one, which, if you don't know, I am not the same as the last guy. He was a great guy, just different. And so Rich was able to walk this group through this transition period of finding a pastor, and not only that, but give them some backbone to what it means to be a leadership team. Our church had no bylaws or no anything when Rich got there, and he was able to kind of support that along. So
I didn't get it all done.
yeah, he could have done better.
I have an underlying philosophy that the pastor who comes in needs to have input into those things.
Yeah, thanks. So we were able to, he was able to get a group together that could run as the board for the church. And most of them, I think we've lost one. So that's a really good retention for a leadership team. And we're able to sit down and put together all the bylaws that we needed and things like that. And of course, the church in Red Lodge being what it is, they were like, why do we need bylaws? Well, they're important for us as a church. We have to have that for all the leadership stuff to have. And so we were able to write bylaws. They're different than most, but Red Lodge is very different. If you come down and visit, you'll understand why. So, and they hired me, so they're really different. But Rich has helped us with projects. Ram has helped us with projects such as getting a sound system that wasn't demon possessed. Yeah, it really was. And I'm trying to think of all the ways. And then I have done some classes with Rich.
So let me show you how grateful Bob was on the sound system. I suffered for the year with the demon-possessed sound system. We purchased a new one for the church just before we left, and as soon as Bob got there, he said, I'm just wondering if we can turn this one in and get it different. That's how grateful he was.
So the one that was gotten was great. But it was completely opposite of what I had learned. So in order to make it easier on me, Rich was graceful, and got us the other one, so we were able to trade it in because it had been under a year. So yeah, good stuff. Thanks a lot, Rich.
I think that's it. I get to follow up.
Yeah, good for you.
My name is Dave, and I am the lead pastor. Hi, and I am afraid to sit by Bob, but I am the lead pastor in Conrad. Just finished 5 years there, and Ram has been amazing with us. If you don't know who I am, I was a youth pastor in Libby for 18 and a half years, and I was fully content to stay as a youth pastor, but God had other plans and brought us to Conrad, and I had never led a church. Conrad was an interesting choice that God brought us to. The church, New Life Fellowship, was a church plant off of another church, and it just really never, for whatever reason, took off. And God brought us there, and the average church attendance at that point was 30 people on a good Sunday. And I had no idea of how to lead a church. And talking to Rich and Kim about the Acts 2 journey was life-saving. Really helped me walk through how to develop not just the organizational side of things, vision and what is our mission and all of those things, but helped us to develop a core leadership team. And we just kind of walked step by step. I was like, I had no clue. I can lead teenagers any day of the week, but adults, they sometimes suck. And they're hard because they have it their way, or they want it their way, and I had no idea what I was doing. And so Rich kind of started walking hand in hand, going through the Acts 2 journey, helping develop leadership team, helping develop vision and mission and all of those things. And then COVID hit. And there was 4 churches that started with us, and we were the only ones that finished. And I'm like, I'm running this through. And it was really life-changing. I don't know how else to put it, but it really helped get feet under me to be able to know how to lead adults. And so the Acts 2 journey was pivotal. Gosh, you guys have done so much. I mean, we have a playground and all kinds of stuff because of RAM and their partnerships with BGMC and stuff, and they helped underwrite an add-on project that we're doing currently, and just so many things. But the Acts 2 journey was huge for us, and now our average attendance on a Sunday, combined kids and everything, is probably around 120. And God has just blessed it, but I attribute it to just following a biblical plan of the Acts 2 journey and sticking to it and going through that. And it was fabulous. And then, we participated in the marriage retreat one year. I'm going on sabbatical in June, and Rich is taking 3 weeks of coming up and filling the pulpit while I'm gone. But just a great, not just a partnership, but a friendship with Ram and our people of love. As a whole, we support them as missionaries, and just been good. But the Acts 2 journey especially if you are new to it and you're trying to figure out how to do this thing, it was life-saving for us. For me.
Can I tell you a little bit more about the story from Conrad? When Dave came to pastor the church in Conrad, the church that his church had split off of, I was filling in at that church at the time, and recommended to the district that we actually close that church and merge with Dave's church. There was really no reason in Conrad to have 2 AG churches that, in all honesty, on a really good Sunday between the 2 of them, they would be running 40 people. If Dave had 30 on a good Sunday, at the other one we had 10. And I can only think of a honestly without much of a desire to change. And so Dave came in at the right time to be able to say, hey, let's close this one down, let's merge these two together, encourage the people that were coming to the one that I was at to go to Dave's church and be a part of that. And so I guess the synergy of the whole thing is wrapped up into, I just see the hand of God in all of these different aspects of these ministries. I wanted to talk to you for just a couple minutes about the marriage retreat. Dave mentioned that. Actually, all three of these pastors up here and their wives have been to one of our marriage retreats over the years, and this year we do have another one coming up in September at Glacier Bible Camp. If you go to my table over here by the back door, there's a little poster that tells you a little bit about the marriage retreat, or you can go to our website at ramnetwork.org. But every year we gather some rural pastors to come to Glacier Bible Camp and experience basically about 3.5 days of some group teaching and then some breaking down into small groups. And we have mentor couples that have been there every year to work with these couples. Ed Vinio is sitting right here. Ed and Janet have been some of our mentor couples every year. And yeah, I don't think you've missed one yet that we've done. And if I can just share a testimony that came back to me from this marriage retreat this last year, a couple that is not in the Assemblies of God, that was there, that was a part of Ed and Janet's group. And we've been meeting with them and working on mentoring them. They live in Helena, and just spending a great deal of time with them. But their takeaway from the marriage retreat this last year was, they said, there was one morning where we were doing devotionals with Ed and Janet, and they were both just sharing. And he said, in all honesty, he said, I know we were late getting back to the main session, because he said the Spirit of God was so strong in our devotional time that morning. He said, I have been a Pentecostal Christian all of my life. I am a graduate of Christ for the Nations. And he said, and I have never experienced the presence of God like I did at the moment in those devotions that morning. It was a life-changing moment for us. Those are the kinds of things that happen. I had one pastor one year that came to the retreat. The next year he came back and gave a testimony saying, I just got to tell you that last year we came as participants of the retreat. If we had not done that, he said, I can guarantee you that we would not be pastoring our church right now, and I'm not sure we would be married. He said the stress of ministry was crushing us, and we didn't even realize it until we came to that retreat. And God did some healing work. So, with that being said, we want to invite you to be a part of our Rural Pastors Marriage Retreat. And if not you, maybe you know specifically, I really think it's great for some young couples. And, all of us up here, we were discussing, we're getting a little bit older. Bob is the young guy, and he just turned 40.
Yes, he did.
So we're all getting a little bit older, but if you know some young couples, which, by the way, I've got two couples coming from Texas this year. And one of those couples, when he agreed to come, this young pastor, he agreed to come. He wasn't even engaged yet. But he got engaged. I met him in January. And he says, yeah, I'll come. And I said, well, but you're not married? You're not even engaged? He said, well, I'm going to be engaged next month, and we'll be married before September. And so this month they're getting married, and they're going to be at the retreat in September. So if you know some young couples, maybe not in that exact scenario, but you know some young couples that would benefit from that, that is a tremendous blessing to pastors.
Just single down there, if he signs up, will he find a mate?
Well, we can find him one. We can find him one and get you married by September. Is that
Run fast. There are actually two young ladies here looking. So.
Get you hooked up.
Set up a table.
That's a new service. That's already a rumor in AG in Montana, probably.
So I have a question for you, because one of the things that we've been able to do is God blessed us about 2 years ago to become the Coins for Kids project through BGMC and Girls Ministries in the Assemblies of God. And that has brought in some money. And I will be, we're recording this, right? Okay, can't say that then.
I can go pause it.
No, we're good. We're good. I'll just rephrase things a little bit. God has blessed us with those finances, and God has actually allowed us, or the U.S. Missions Department has allowed us to move that money into the Montana District Office and operate that out from there. And through those funds, we've been able to help some churches with some projects that have been ongoing. One of those, Pastor Daniel mentioned this morning, a purchase of a van. We were able to help match funds for that van so that they could get their kids to camps. Pastor Dave mentioned they're doing an addition to the church that is going to be kicking off here real soon, and we've been able to help give some funding to that. We've been able to purchase a sound system for Red Lodge. We were able to purchase some sound equipment for Baker. We were able to do several things, and we've got some other projects that are coming up, but we've already got some funding earmarked for, and it has been a blessing. I don't know how long we'll be able to do that, because when the money runs out, I don't know that we can go back to the same source and get that, but we want to be a blessing to the rural churches. And typically what we're trying to do is a matching fund type of thing, so that you can raise half of the funds and we can provide half of the funds. If we just fully funded everything, we wouldn't be able to keep on doing that forever. I will mention to you just a couple of things. There's several of you in here that have been a part of our marriage retreats. If you would like to give toward those marriage retreats for pastors to come in the future, financially, that would be a blessing to us, because we don't charge a great fee for the marriage retreat. We are asking this year a $100 deposit, which covers room and food and activities and all kinds of things at the retreat. Last year, Pastor Kevin Lindgren got rafts together so that we could all go rafting down the river, and that was just a lot of fun. I don't know that you can do that every year in September at Glacier Bible Camp, but this last year we were able to, and it was an awesome experience. So we just had a lot of fun doing some of those things. I'm just seeing here what else is on our. I am looking forward to working with two of these pastors that are up here this year are taking a sabbatical. Dave mentioned that he's going to be gone, and I'm covering those three. Bob, you just haven't been at Red Lodge long enough yet. And Pastor Jared is going to be taking a sabbatical this summer. And for both of these guys, I get to be a part of that experience for them as well, and helping them. With Dave, I'm just going up there to preach for 3 weeks, and he's got other people preaching the rest of it. With Jared, I'm actually going to be moving to Harlowton for a little bit, and just experiencing being there and being available to the people of the church during that time. And so that's one of the things that is available to you. During the midst of all of that, we continue to do Acts 2 journeys. We continue to do mentoring of pastors. We put the marriage retreats together. We're working on developing missions teams and missions projects that are ongoing, and we just want to come alongside of our pastors in any way that we can. Our huge focus is on revitalization of the church. In fact, this past year, God did something unique in our lives for Kim and I, and we ended up spending most of 2023 in Crystal Springs, Mississippi. And that was just kind of a God thing that he put together. You know, our organization is called Rural America Ministries, and I'll be honest with you, primarily it had been Rural Montana Ministries, but God gave us a little bit more of America this last year and helped us to distinguish the principles of revitalization that are available, and how God works in different places. And I won't go into the whole story of how we got to Mississippi, but we'll just say we got there, and our very first Sunday at the church in Crystal Springs, we had 3 people that came to church. 5 with my wife and I. And how many of you have ever sat in a sanctuary of a church with 3 people sitting in the pews? It's a little disheartening, isn't it? It's a little bit like, how do you do a church service when you've got 3 people sitting in the audience? Well, 4 if I count my wife, but and I should count my wife. So there were 4 sitting there. Oh, she wasn't sitting there the whole time though, because she was helping me do worship and stuff too. So worship, when we're not musicians, we don't play the piano, we don't play the guitar. So you're just left struggling, and you're preaching to this crowd of 3 people. And how many of you know that when 3 people come to church, they do not sit together? Have you ever noticed that? I mean, it'd be like in this room, you got one over here, one there, and one over there. And that's what you're trying to preach to. Well, God blessed our ministry there, and we were able to see God do some great things in about 9 months that we spent in Mississippi. By the time that we left, we were hitting a high of about 30 on a Sunday morning. But one of the first things that I did was I moved our church service from the sanctuary into the fellowship hall so that we could sit around a round table. If we're going to have 5 people, let's all just sit down and talk. Let's not try to be something that we're not. And God began to really bless that. And we grew from 1 table to 2 tables to 3 tables to 4 tables, which was about all that our fellowship hall would hold. And so at that point, we hit about 30 people, and we had to move back into the sanctuary. And can I tell you, the dynamics changed. The dynamics of how things operated just began to change at that point. And it became a struggle. People stopped. When we were around the tables in the fellowship hall, we had new people showing up every week. We moved into the sanctuary, and new people stopped coming. It's a wild dynamic. But all of that to say, when I go into the rural church, I really emphasize in the rural setting, what you can do well is really build relationships. I keep having to hit that with the church in Crystal Springs. We don't have youth. We can't do a youth ministry. We really don't have kids. We started to gain some kids, so our kids ministry consisted of what we can incorporate into the main service. Not separating them out, but incorporating some kids into what we were doing so that families are welcome, that the kids are being a part of that. But what we can do well, we can't do worship real well. We can't do youth ministry real well. We can't do a separate kids ministry, but we can build relationships. And once a church begins to get that concept, then we can reach out to the relationships that we already have in the community and begin to invite people in. I was amazed. So one thing that I learned being in the South in Mississippi is it is not Montana. They may start with the same letter, but those 2 states are completely different. This is not the Bible Belt. Mississippi is. So rural looks a little bit different in Mississippi. We were in a small town in Mississippi, Crystal Springs, which has a population of about 4,500 people, and there were 56 churches in Crystal Springs. 56. 22 Baptist churches, 11 Methodist churches, and a whole bunch of others. Okay? That's new for me. Not a single Lutheran church anywhere to be found, which is odd when you're from Montana. But just a massive amount of churches. And I start thinking, how in the world do you grow a church from 3 people in a town that has 55 other churches in it? And a couple of them pretty large churches. And so it all comes down to you build relationships. I learned a couple of things that are different dynamics in the Bible Belt than they are up here. Number one, you can invite people to come to church, and even if they don't intend to stay at your church, they'll at least come, because that's just cultural. Here, you can invite people to church, and they look at you funny, like, why would I ever want to go to church? They don't do that down there. It's cultural to go to church, so you invite somebody, they'll come. But then you've got to build the relationship and bring them into the fold and let God do some life-changing work in people's lives. And so a lot of our work has been based around just revitalization and taking some principles that we've learned into the rural context to see God do some great things in those places. One of the things that we're involved in right now is just making trips fairly regularly up to Scobie to help the church in Scobie just refocus and begin to move forward and revitalize. And hopefully be a part of some of the financial projects that they need help with as well in that area. So one of the questions that I've asked this panel to address, and I'm going to give the microphone back to them, is what do you see as some of the greatest needs in rural church ministry, and how can we be a part of seeing those needs met? And so I want to get some of their thoughts on those ideas.
I guess we'll start down there with Dave.
This way. I like this because then I never have to go first.
Oh, man.
Do that question again?
I think that one of the major things that you face in rural America, at least in Conrad, I can only speak about Conrad, is some of the social norms that are multi-generational, like drinking, is a big one in Conrad, even in the church. And we first got there, my wife Charity wanted to do a women's Christmas party. And there was 5 women go, we'll bring the wine. And Charity's like, what? It's like, no, it's a church event. Oh yeah, we'll bring the wine. The weird dynamic about our church is we are AG, but we are probably demographically the least AG church in the AG. We have more, I don't know if I could use the word Reformed Lutherans and Catholic and Dutch Reformed than ever. I mean, if we were to count how many AG people that are diehard, that were raised in the AG, there's 10 of us. And that includes my wife and I. So that's a weird thing in itself. But because of that, that's why the drinking is such a thing. But it's even in families. I mean, they'll let their kids drink as long as they're at home, and it's a huge norm. And then, obviously, if you've been in a small town very long, the gossip circles are thick, and you guys know what I'm talking about. Yeah, it's remarkable how fast. When we first moved there, the rumor was that I was a drug dealer in my town, and that was going through, and people were coming to me going, you know,
He's got one up on you, Dave.
yeah.
Just a drug user.
I'm the dealer. Yeah.
I was using with them.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, so yeah, you get it. It's remarkable. But the hardest thing for us, by far, is if you are not from a specific family from that area, you will never fit in. And that makes rural ministry hard because you're always an outsider that would never trust you. Yep, I got those directions. We're good. No, it's totally okay. It happens every Sunday on my Apple Watch. So, I get it. But that's probably the hardest thing for us is in the building relationship, because people, they're very friendly and they're very kind, but they will hold you here forever. And that makes building this relationship part very difficult, at least in our community. But I would venture to say that that's probably a common thing in most small towns, especially if it is deep-rooted in agriculture, because it is multi-generational. They're handing their farms down and things. But the good thing about that is we will never have a bunch of people moving into our community from California or Philadelphia because there ain't no place to live because it's all land. So that's one of the things that we've experienced. Probably the most difficult that we have is building a relationship. And 5 years, just now starting to develop some deeper relationships where people are beginning to trust us. And story after story, I could go on there. But I want Bob to talk.
So Red Lodge is a little different than Conrad because I think the housing market there has over doubled in like 2 or 3 years. And so, and there's no houses to buy in Red Lodge. So, and if there was, just to give you a perspective, the house across the street from our church is a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house for $500,000 in city limits with no lot to speak of. So, and not a big house, and old, and run down, and not fixed. So our Red Lodge community, I call it the community of 33%. 33% are year-round, 33% are winter for the ski resort, and then 33% come in the summer. So our congregation will adjust with that. So we'll lose 33, gain 33, and then 33% stay year-round. So it's very unique in that aspect. I think the struggle with, or the need for rural ministries is connection with people, with others, going through the same thing that you're going through. Because I don't know about you, but there's days where you sit there and go, there's got to be something more to life than just sitting and spinning your wheels, feeling like you're spinning your wheels, when the truth is you're really not spinning your wheels.
I'll also tell a little bit about Dinner Church.
Oh, yeah. So our focus on changing things in Red Lodge was to start Dinner Church. Ours is unique in an awesome way because the people don't necessarily not want to come to church, or they don't necessarily need food, but they don't have the ability to connect on a Sunday because we're a resort town. And so when we moved there, our heart was to start something besides a Sunday morning typical service. And when we started Dinner Church, I went to the board, talked with them, and they were like, yeah, we really don't have the resources to do this. And I said, we really don't have the resources not to do this. And I said, let me rephrase my question to you leadership. We need to do this. And so they said, all right, we'll do it. And we got together, planned our first start, we kicked it off, and I think we had 13 people there the first night, all people from Sunday morning, and one other person. And I was like, all right, one person is worth it. And so the following week, we had less of our congregation and one more person. I was like, all right, one more person is worth it. And then the following week, and this kept going on and on, we had less of our Sunday morning attendance showing up, and one more person, and one more person, and one more person. And then we came in. I remember the Monday night I came in, and And so at the height, when we had this winter, was we were running 65 people packed into this small sanctuary and running out of food and going, Lord, if you could just make that food last till the end of the night. We had a lady running to the grocery store buying frozen pizzas, throwing them in, and that was the greatest night of ministry that I think I've ever had, is just watching the life come from Red Lodge. And everybody who comes on a Monday night feels the same. And so that's
And some of your
that's
leaders
incredible.
that were skeptical at the beginning.
Oh, yeah. One of my leaders came up and said, hey, right before it took off, was like, hey, Pastor, so we support you, but we're not coming anymore to Monday night because it's just not worth our time. But because we had kind of stalled for a second. And that night, it blew up. Like, things really started to take off, and a whole bunch of people came. And my leadership came up to me afterwards and goes, we were wrong, and we should have listened. Like, how did you know this was going to take off? And I said, I didn't. I just hope, I prayed that it would. And God isn't going to sit here and go, well, you should have done it better, or you should have started better, or you should have waited until you had more publicity. And I was like, no, we're just going to start and see what God does with Dinner Church. And the people that we've been able to minister to. We have a homeless guy that he won't come to our church, but we feed him every week. We bought to-go boxes just for him to be able to send food out and give him to-go boxes. And that might never come to a relationship with us, but he knows us. And then we were blessed this winter by a group of people who didn't speak English. They all came from Peru and Paraguay and Portugal, all over the world, and they were working on the mountain. And it was really awkward. The first week I decided, you know what, I'm going to go out of my comfort zone and sit with a bunch of people who speak Spanish. The whole time they made fun of me. I know it, in their own language, not in English. And I told them that. I said, you know, I just love sitting here listening to you make fun of me. Some of them were like, they didn't speak any English, and they were like, but towards the end, that group of kids they'd call me and ask if we could go play basketball or do things like that. So I spent a month with them just going and playing basketball. One of them came in, his grandmother died on Monday on Dinner Church, and I was able to pray with him. And he contacted me later and was like, hey, Pastor, I just want to tell you, nobody's ever done that for me. And so it was a great opportunity to love that kid. And then he lost his job because his grandma died, and he couldn't sleep the night before. And so me and my son were able to go take him job shopping so he didn't get sent back early. So those kinds of things are just endless. And the amount of relationship with broken people for Dinner Church is amazing. Because they don't come for just to hear about Christ, but they do get an opportunity to hear.
When you ask the question, what's the greatest need in rural ministry, my mind goes to like a lot of different directions. What's the need in the community? What's the need in the church? What's the need for pastors and their families and all that? So it can encompass a lot of different things. I'll say a couple things. One is a great need for me after being 7.5 years in Harleton is you get tired. So what do you do with this? And this goes to another idea is mindsets, unhealthy mindsets in rural areas, I think. There's a lot of unhealthy mindsets. Pastor, we don't get a vacation after 7 years. Why should we give you a sabbatical? But to help address that issue, one of the things that helps get them over the hurdle, even as I've been walking through it, we have a guy that lives in Helena that's willing to come be an interim pastor for 3 months, and so you will still have a pastor. You guys aren't stuck with everything. So to me, that's huge.
Yeah.
That he's willing to step in and help in those areas. So for me personally, that's a great thing. But you're also dealing with, one of the greatest needs for me is an unhealthy mindsets, and I wrote a whole bunch of these down. Things like poverty mindset. We're a small church, we're a small community, so therefore we can't accomplish a lot. We don't have a lot of finances, instead of, let's see what God can do. Or pastors come and go, but we're here forever, so we don't fully trust you. Or the pastors will do it because we hire them to do it. I mean, there's all kinds of mindsets that you're dealing with in churches, and it takes time to break through some of those, and you need wisdom as you approach all of those. And I think one of the things that's nice, even with Ram, is you can call up Rich and go, hey, man, he's going, yeah, I understand. You know, stick it out, or hey, let me pray with you, or, you know, just keep on keeping on. You're doing what God's called you to do. So that's a great need in communities, especially rural areas, is to understand the mindsets are there. I mean, a big one in Montana is we pick ourselves up by our own bootstraps. We just don't need help. You know, and if we don't need help, then we need God, but only up to a certain point. You know, and so, I mean, there's a lot of needs, but helping to address some of those mindsets with God's wisdom is a big thing for me.
So I did want to tell you about one more resource that we're making available. If you go to the website, ramnetwork.org, there's a link on there on the top of the page that just says Small Church Forum. And it is a place to go where the whole idea behind this forum is for pastors and church leaders to be able to go, and you can pick a topic on this forum and say, hey, I'm struggling with this. Any other pastors out there that have dealt with this? The forum will only be as good as the number of people that are using it. And so I just encourage you to. So you can go to my website to do that. Or if you go, again, out to my table, there's a QR code that you can scan that'll just take you right to that forum. It's not a Facebook forum, because on a Facebook forum you can't really search for your topics or whatever. But on this forum site, you can actually search for a topic that you're interested in or that you want to begin a discussion in, and see if you can draw some other people in and get some feedback. And maybe sometimes it's just somebody to say, hey, I understand, I've been there, this is what happened, this is what I did, so don't do this because it didn't work. You know, those things can be helpful. And so that is another resource that is available to you that we just want to be able to help you find ways to communicate and find solutions to some of the things that you're going through. So I hope that this has been at least informative and helpful. These guys are some of my heroes in just what they've done in ministry, as well as the pastors that you heard at the breakfast this morning. If you were here, these guys have just been doing this, and God has been working. And I think one of the keys that I think Greg shared this morning in the breakfast was, you know, the biggest thing is, what is God asking of you? And just do it. Just follow God. Hear what God is saying and be obedient. Every place is different. I've been in Conrad, I've been in Harlowton, I've been at Red Lodge. And I'm going to tell you, none of those communities are alike. They all have differences. Harlow and Conrad are probably a little more alike. We were discussing before we began up here that in Red Lodge, one of the favorite things of people to do is smoke marijuana. I will tell you, we spent 9 months in Red Lodge. I never met anybody in Red Lodge that was born and raised in Red Lodge. Everybody's from the outside in Red Lodge. That is not normal in our small Montana towns. When I pastored in Circle, I don't think there's anybody in Circle that wasn't born and raised there, hardly. So, you know, just the opposite of Red Lodge. So Red Lodge will accept a pastor in a lot more readily but it doesn't mean you get to know anybody any better. And so you still have to work at the relationship building. So anyway, I hope that these things have been helpful to you. We're going to do another session in here a little bit more in this next session, talking about one other resource that we have, which is with the Paul Timothy Institute, helping to equip pastors to mentor their ministry leaders.
Can I say one more thing? I want to.
One more plug for the Acts 2 journey. Probably one of the most pivotal things that it helped us with was asking the right questions within a community. And I remember it was in one of our retreats, one of our first retreats with Rich, that the question, somebody, I don't even remember who it was, but I went back and I asked this question to my elders. And I said, if New Life Fellowship Church was to cease to exist in our community, would they even notice? And it was no. And that is, we have a leadership retreat every year in end of December, 1st of January, and I ask that question every year. So if we were ceased to exist now, would we even be missed? And we're getting to a spot now where they're like, yeah, I think people would miss us. And it spurred something in them of, we don't want to be insignificant in our community. The church, and it was with Kim and Laurel Harvey with Convoy of Hope, Rural Compassion, that started talking about what the stakeholders were in a community. And the church is not even in the top 5 anymore. And that's sad. So what are we going to do to shift that? And, because of what we've learned and experienced, not just in A2J, but in the Paul to Timothy, is how to not only create vision, but cast vision and communicate vision. And we just started doing that. In our church at New Life, it was remarkable. Charity and I, my wife and I, were foster parents for many years, and we adopted. And when we came to Conrad, that's when the adoption of our 2 little boys was complete. And we started recognizing within our community of believers in our church that there was a bunch of foster care people that they are currently fostering or have. And it started to really develop. And then with a partnership with Child Bridge and Promise 686, and they helped us start to dream a little bit of what we could do in our community. We just finished, we got the last little bit this week that we're finishing. We walked into the Child Protection Service and said, what can we do to serve you? We know that you're underfunded and you're overworked. What can we do to help? And they said, we would love to do something with our visitation room because it looks like a hospital room. And in their conference room, I don't even want to go to talk about, it was storage. And they have these family meetings and stuff, and it was embarrassing for them, but they didn't have the budget to do it. So I went to the Southern Baptist Church, the pastor's a friend of mine, and I said, what can we do together? We went in, I brought my kids' pastor in, and another lady that does interior design stuff, and it was phenomenal. And Kobe, the pastor at the Baptist Church, said, we don't have nobody to do the work, but we have money. So if you provide the workers, we'll provide the money to buy whatever we need. We just totally revamped the visitation room. We totally revamped their conference room that actually looks like a conference room, that looks professional. The kids ministry, they had 3 visits the week that we finished, and they're like, it actually feels like our living room. And so that sparked something else. So now the Alliance for Youth out of Great Falls is like, we want to do parenting classes in Conrad. Can we use your facility? And we're like, yes. And they're providing a meal, and we're providing childcare and all that. But it all took place because we learned some principles through the Acts 2 journey and through Paul and Timothy of how to not just create vision, but to cast vision and get people on board. And now they're going, oh my gosh, there's 20 churches in Conrad and nobody has a community presence at all. They're They're just churches that exist. I don't know about you guys, but the church is bigger than that, and we should be making an impact outside the four walls of our building. And I'm just, I'm a big fan of Access to Journey for me personally, because it has helped me be able to articulate and develop teams to be able to cast vision that people want to be a part of. So it's amazing, and it's now that whole thing is, if we cease to exist, would we be missed? Is starting to shift, and we're still a long way from it. But now what's happened is the Southern Baptist Church, which is primarily old people, he's like, how can I partner with you? We can't do a lot of things, but we have money. We got a bunch of rich farmers that have money, but they're running 20 people on a Sunday, and they're all old people. But now it's creating vision for him as a pastor, going, wait, man, I want to partner. Can we help? And it creates that synergy that is starting to really make a difference. And so that part's really, really cool. I just wanted to throw that in there.
Well, I just want to thank you guys for coming today. Can I just pray for you before we go? And then I hope you come back for the next session. Father, I just pray for the pastors and leaders that are in this room. Lord, the calling upon our lives to the place that you have put us. Sometimes, Lord, it's really heavy. Sometimes it's really difficult. Lord, we've heard exciting things today, but we know that along with all the exciting things that you're doing, Lord, there's all kinds of struggles that lead to those exciting things. And Father, I just pray for those in this room, Lord, that you would give us the strength and the grace to walk through the struggles so that we can get to the victories that you provide. Lord, I thank you for resources, God, that you blessed us with to be able to cooperate together for the fulfillment of the kingdom of God. Lord, each rural community represented in this room today is a part of your kingdom. And so, Father, I pray that you would help us to extend the grace of God in the communities where you placed us. Give us vision, give us insight, give us the ability to lead well. And Lord, I pray that for me as a missionary to rural America, Lord, that you would give me the ability to partner well with the pastors and the leaders that are in this room, Lord, to accomplish what you have set each one out to do. And we thank you for that in Jesus' name.
Thank you for listening to the Montana Ministry Network podcast. The Montana Ministry Network is a network of 82 Assemblies of God churches across the state of Montana. To learn more, visit us online at www.montanaministrynetwork.com.